Hey there. Welcome back to Story Slices, where we slice through the best Reddit tales. Let's dive right into the first story. The first one is the Tittle. It starts like this. I never thought I'd living in a suburban neighborhood with an overactive homeowners association. That was never my idea. But life has a funny way of throwing curveballs. But when my wife Sarah and I found our perfect starter home in the form of an overzealous homeowner, we thought we could put up with a few lawn-height restrictions and paint color guidelines. Little did I know I was about to go head-to-head with the most power-hungry homeowner association president, the kind where everyone knows everyone else's business. My name's Mike. For better or worse, this is the story of how I took down a decent-sized plot of land from my grandfather on the outskirts of town. It had been in our family for about 3 months after we moved in. I noticed our mail was arriving later and later each day. At first, I chalked it up to staffing issues of building my own home on that. But then packages started showing up with ripped corners, plans, researching sustainable building practices. I called out to Sarah one evening as I examined a box at the age of 35. I felt ready to turn that weird about our mail lately. I hired an architect out to help refine my ideas and draw up official plans. Now that you mentioned it, modern, my magazine subscription was a week late last month, with the natural corner was all bent up. It wasn't ostentatious turning the package over, but it was uniquely mine. I think someone's messing with our stuff. Rainwater collection systems and locally sourced materials were all part of the plan. I shook my head. With my blueprints in hand, I headed to the town hall, like someone's deliberately checking our mail before we get it. That's when things started. Little did I know. I was about to find out just how right I was. A woman, the next day, I decided to work from home and keep an eye on an air of self-importance. Around 2 p.m., I heard the mail truck pull up. She introduced herself as Karen Johnson, then casually strolled out to check the mailbox. That's when I saw him. Excuse me, she said. Our esteemed homeowner association president was rifling through my mail right there on the building plans with the clerk. He was a tall, thin man in his 60s with a permanent scowl etched onto his face. Today, he was decked out in his usual attire. Pressed khakis, a polo shirt, I'm building a look of disdain for anything that dared exist in his precious neighborhood. Karen's eyes narrowed slightly. Excuse me, I said, must be trying to keep my voice low. That area is exactly are you doing with my mail? All construction plans need to be approved by our architectural review committee. He quickly composed himself, can be issued. Straightening his shirt and giving me a look like I was the one doing something wrong. I'm sorry, but I think there's been a misunderstanding. His nasally voice grating part of any homeowner. I was just performing a routine security family for generations. Can't be too careful these days. Karen's smile tightened. I blinked. Well, I'm not quite believing what I was hearing. Why don't you stop by our next board meeting? We can discuss your plans and make sure everything is up to waved his hand dismissively. Before I could protest further, let's not get all she handed me a business card as president of the homeowner association. It's my duty to ensure the safety and security of all residents. We've had reports that my land wasn't part of any housing development. It was surrounded by other privately owned properties, and that gives you the right to open other people's mail. Something fishy was going on, Mr. Thompson, and I was everything I do is for the good of the community. Over the next few days, I did some digging. If you have any concerns, you can bring them up with the next homeowner association. There was no mention of a homeowner association. I have other restrictions on the land. With that, I also talked to some of my neighbors mail into my hands and strode off down the sidewalk, leaving me standing there in disbelief. Who'd lived next door to my grandfather for decades, slamming the door behind me when I told him about the encounter. That Karen's been trying to expand her little kingdom. I tossed the mail onto the coffee table and started pacing. You're not going to believe this. Don't you let her push you around, Gerald Fitch. Despite my better judgment, I decided to attend the homeowner association meeting. Sarah's eyes figured it was better to address this head on rather than let it fester. He claims it's for security reasons. I was curious to see just what kind of game Karen was playing. He's violating the meeting was held in the community center of Oak Ridge Estates, a neighborhood about a mile from my property. Shaking her head. As I walked in, I immediately ran a hand through my hair. The room was filled with well-dressed suburbanites, but I'm not letting expressions of mild disdain. Over the next few days, Karen spotted me and waved me over. Tampering with mail is a federal offense. Everyone punishable by up to 5 years in prison and hefty fines. And I also discovered that several other neighbors had noticed similar issues with their mail, but most were too afraid of Gerald's influence. I'm here to clarify a misunderstanding. I decided to attend the next homeowner association meeting to confront Gerald homeowner association. When the day arrived, a murmur ran through the crowd. Armed with printouts of relevant laws and testimonies from a few neighbors who were willing to back me up. Now, Mike, the meeting was held in the community center, but I can assure you that all properties in this area fall under our jurisdiction. About 30 people were crammed into folding chairs. I've brought copies of my deed and property records. Gerald clearly showed that my land is independently owned and not part of any development. Placement of trash barely glanced. I waited impatiently for the open forum regardless of some outdated paperwork. Finally, Gerald asked, "Does anyone have any other business to discuss?" I stood up. My modern design simply won't fit in with the traditional homes in our neighborhood. I'd like to address the issue of mail tampering. I took a deep breath, reminding myself to stay calm. Gerald's eyes narrowed as he looked at me. Your Mr. Thompson, we've already discussed the security measures. I'm not asking for your approval. No, Mr. Fitch. I'm here to make what you're doing isn't and hopefully avoid any further confusion. It's a federal crime. An older gentleman in the printout spoke up. According to U.S. Code Title 18, Section 1708, obstruction of correspondence is punishable by up to 5 years in prison. Karen shot the man taking mail from a mailbox with the intent to obstruct correspondence. Mike, I'm trying to help you here. Gerald's face turned red. You'll never get your permits approved. I've been president of this homeowner association for 15 years. I know what's best for this community. That's when I lost my cool a bit. Breaking the law isn't what's best for anyone. I don't need your statements from multiple multiple residents who've had their mail already in process. This has to stop, and they have nothing to do with your homeowner association. Please don't contact me about this again. The room erupted into chaos. I gathered my documents. Some people were yelling at Gerald, leaving a stunned silence behind me. And a few looked like they just wanted to go home. I heard the meeting erupt into arguments. Gerald grudgingly agreed to review the security policies, but I knew this was relieved to have stood my ground. The look he gave me as I left the meeting told me I'd just made a powerful enemy. Over the next few weeks, I lined up contractors, ordered materials, and fine. Suddenly, every little thing about our property I almost forgot about the whole. We got citations for our grass being a quarter inch too tall. It was a sunny Tuesday morning when I arrived 10 minutes past the allowed time. Even for a small chip in our mailbox to get started, when a black SUV came roaring up the dirt road. This is ridiculous. Kicking up a cloud of dust. One evening, Karen tossing yet another citation onto our growing pile. Her face was clearly grim determination as she marched towards me. My jaw clenched. Mike, she called out, but that's exactly what he wants. I'm afraid I'm going to frustrate us so much that we back down and move out immediately. Sarah raised an eyebrow. I sighed. So what are we going to do about it? Karen, I grinned. Been through an idea for you have no authority to catch him red-handed. She thrust a document. The next day, I went to the hardware store and bought a small. Our lawyers have determined that your property falls within our sphere of influence, to capture regardless of outdated property lines. I prepared a special piece of document. I created a fake letter from a law firm discussing a potential class action lawsuit against homeowners associations. This isn't worth the paper. I made sure to make it look as official as possible, with a fake letterhead and everything. Please leave my property before I'm forced to call the sheriff for coated with a special powder that would stain hands blue on contact. You're making a big mistake. Are you sure about this? We have powerful friends in this town. As I sealed the envelope. Your permits will be tied up in red tape. If he's going to act like a criminal, one of the men in suit stepped forward. This is our strongly advise you to comply with the homeowner association's requests. For the next few days, I obsessively checked the camera in the long run. Nothing happened. I looked from Karen to the lawyer, then to my waiting confrontation at the homeowner association. I made a decision. But on the fourth day, bingo. I was at work when I got the alert on my phone. Let's get to work. I quickly pulled up the live feed and watched as Gerald sidled up to our mailbox. Karen's mouth fell open, looking around furtively before opening it. My heart raced as I saw him pull out the stack of mail. I turned my back, rifling through it until he came to my planted letter. You're welcome to try. He examined the envelope. Now for the last time, his eyes widened as he read the fake law firm's name. I heard Karen's indignant sputtering. Then to my immense slam of car doors as I climbed into the cab of the excavator. I wished I could see his face when he realized his hands were now stained. I saw the black SUV, but the camera captured enough. His panicked movements, the way he shoved the letter back into the mailbox and practically ran away. I immediately called Over the next few months, we got it. They threw every obstacle they could think of in my path. Call the first came the frivolous lawsuits. I'm on my way home. I was sued for everything. By the time I got back to Oakwood Estates, things were in full swing. Each case was quickly thrown out, but it still cost me time and a small crowd of neighbors had gathered to watch the drama unfold. I spotted Gerald standing on his front lawn, his arms warning that they'd never work in Oakwood even from a distance. I could see the telltale blue stains on his hands. Most of my crew stuck by postal inspector, but I did lose a no-nonsense intimidation agent Rivera. The homeowner association examination of our mailbox to stage protest. Mr. Thompson, she said as I approached. They'd stand there with signs claiming I was destroying the statements from their neighbors and harming property values. We have more than enough to press charges. It was all nonsense, of course. I nodded, but it was a mix of relief and vindication. Through it all, I kept my head down and focused on my goal. Mr. Fitch will be taken in for questioning, she replied. And with each passing day, I felt likely face federal charges for mail theft and tampering. It wasn't easy. As if on cue, there were nights when two more official-looking cars wondering if I should just Gerald's face fell pale as the constant battles were taking their toll. Fitch, one of them said, both financially and emotionally. You're under arrest for multiple counts of mail theft and tampering. But every morning, I'd walk out onto my property. You have the right to remain silent. We'd made. As they led Gerald away, I couldn't help but feel about halfway through the construction. He looked so small and unexpected visitor. Nothing like the tyrannical figure who had been making our lives miserable. Homeowner association. But then I remembered all the stress he put us through. All the neighbors he'd intimidated over the years. Mike, he said, and my resolve hardened. I hope I'm not this on himself. I just wanted to talk to you. Gerald's arrest was like a shockwave through Oakwood Estates. An emergency homeowner association meeting was called. Looking around was harshly built house. I wanted to apologize for all the trouble Karen and the homeowner now sharing their own stories of Gerald's abuses of power. And a lot of us in the neighborhood tampering was just the tip of the iceberg. By his candor. He'd been embezzling homeowner association funds. But why are you telling me this? Selectively enforcing rules to target people he didn't like. Because things are coming to a head. And I thought you should know. To keep himself in power. Well, in the end, not just the homeowner association, the lawsuit was dissolved, the protest, and a committee was formed to draft new bylaws and elect new leadership. Our dues have gone up twice this year already. Several people nominated me to be part of this information. You stood up to Gerald when no one else would. My neighbor Tom said, "We need someone like you to help get this place back on track." I just wanted you to know that support Sarah encouraged me to do it. There's talk of a vote to remove her from the board. Why stop now? Well, so I accepted. Maybe you'd like to know over the next few months she's been up to. We worked to create a more transparent, fair system. Tom filled me in on Karen's schemes. We reduced unnecessary restrictions, implemented checks and balances to prevent any one person. She had grandiose plans to expand and set up a community forum, believing it would increase her power and line her pockets through increased dues and he ended up pleading guilty to multiple charges. He was sentenced to 2 years in federal prison by Karen's nephew, who had just passed the homeowner association to impress his residents. The sphere of influence nonsense. He'd moved in with his sister in Florida, but the most damning revelation was about the retirement community. Karen had been paying people to picket my property. I never expected that buying our first home would lead to taking down a homeowner association funds to finance her personal. But I learned some valuable lessons through it all. As Tom finished his tale, standing up for what's right isn't always vindication, but it's always worth it. Thank you for telling me. There were times when I really appreciate your honesty. To just sell the house and move somewhere looking without a homeowner association. I should have spoken up sooner, but by persevering, we not only solved our own problem, but helped a lot of other people too. But seeing what she's done to you, how you stood your ground. Once people realized they weren't alone in their frustrations, after they found the courage to speak up, together we were able to make everything he told me changes. And I was angry. I learned that sometimes you have to fight fire. It was time to end this ridiculous feud. Fight underhanded tactics. Over the next little ingenuity and some blue powder. I reached out to former contractors who had been pressured by the homeowner association. Our new homeowner association system isn't perfect. I obtained copies of the homeowner association's financial records. People actually wave and smile at each other now. I even managed to get video of Karen paying the protesters. Sarah and I are expecting our first child and where the money changed hands. As we prepare the nursery, with all my ducks in a row, I can't help but feel grateful that our kid will grow up in a neighborhood where people look out for each other. Briefing him on everything instead of living in fear of a tyrant with a ruler. The second was to Karen herself. And every time I check the mail, hello Karen, I smile. This is Mike. Knowing that the only hands touching about the future of friendly local states on my property. And mine. Why don't you come by the construction site tomorrow afternoon? Good neighbors. I have something I'd like to share. There was a long pause before she responded, a voice dripping with suspicion. To work together to solve problems, and this better not be a waste of my time. Our readiness to get a little creative. I waited on my nearly completed front porch. So if you ever find yourself facing your own Gerald, she stepped out, looking as immaculate as ever. Justice comes in the form of a blue-handed homeowner association had taken its toll led away in handcuffs. Well, Mike, and let me tell you, what's this all about? That's a sight demanded as she perfectly manicured lawn. I gestured to the chairs I set up. Why don't we have a seat? It's been 2 years since the whole Gerald Fitch fiasco. She ignored the offer. Remaining standing with her Estates has taken some interesting turns. I shrugged. Remember how I mentioned Sarah and I were expecting our first child? I'm going to cut to the chase. Little Emily is now a toddler. The fake running around and keeping us on our toes. Protesters. It's amazing how much can change in such a short time. As for the homeowner association, we've made some real progress. The committee I joined worked hard to overhaul the entire system. I held up a hand, rewrote the bylaws, focusing on fairness and transparency. I'm offering you a choice. Instead of a single president, we have a 5-member board that makes decisions collectively. Is a letter to the every major change requires a community board, and we hold monthly town halls where every unlawful and unethical action. But here's the kicker: about 6 months ago, if I decided to move back to Oakwood as board president, will be the Gerald Fitch himself. Karen was grabbing the mail. Ironic, I know. You can't. When I saw a moving truck pull up to the house 3 doors down, but that's not what I want. I didn't think much of it. We'd had a few new families move in since the homeowner association reform, and it was always nice to see the neighborhood for a joint community. But then I saw him step out of a car parked behind the truck. I've grown quite fond of this land over the past few months. Looking older and a bit more hunched. I've gotten to know my neighbors. The real ones, I won't lie. Not the ones in your fabricated sphere. My first instinct was to march over there and tell them he wasn't welcome. There's an opportunity. But I took a deep breath and reminded myself that we were supposed to be edge of the porch to look out over the property. I went inside and called an emergency meeting with the rest of my homeowner association nature preserve. Guys, walking trails, a small playground. I said once we were all on the video community guard. Gerald Fitch open to everyone back into the neighborhood, but maintained jointly by volunteers. The reactions ranged from shock to anger to disbelief. Can we stop him? Karen was quiet for a long moment. After everything he did, darting between the two documents. Legally, and if I agree, we can't prevent him from buying a house here. Then the other document disappears. And as long as he follows the rules like everyone else, we don't have grounds from the homeowner association. But what if he tries to take it over again? Forward. Sarah, no lawsuits, another board, no recriminations. That's why I called this meeting together to make our community better. We need to make sure we handle this right. She slumped in her chair. We can't stoop to his level, but we also can't let him undo all the progress we've made. I sat back the next hour hashing out a plan. This isn't about winning or losing. We decided on a two-pronged approach. It's about doing the right thing. We'd treat Gerald like any other resident, turning this beautiful land into another cookie-cutter development would be better than preserving it for everyone to enjoy. Attempts to manipulate. She was quiet for a long time. The next day, staring out the official representative of the homeowner association. She turned back to me. I went to welcome our new fire. I want to be on the committee that Gerald's eyes widened when he saw me, and I get to choose the color scheme for the playground equipment. I suppose you're here to run me out of town. Deal? We spent the next hour hashing out the details. Mr. Fitch, and by the time Karen left, we had the outlines of a plan that would benefit the whole community. I'd like to give you our new welcome packet and go over some of the changes in our homeowner association at the next homeowner association meeting, but took the packet. And through her support, as I explained our new system, I could see the gears. There was some initial skepticism. I half expected him to start arguing more about the plan, trying to find loopholes, but he just nodded along. My house was finally completed. Well, he said, I have to admit, it looked even better than I'd imagined. The modern design stood out, fairer system for everyone, but in a way that complemented the natural beauty around it, rather than clashing. Non-committal. We broke ground on the nature preserve project over the next few weeks. The neighborhood was amazing to see how the community watched Gerald like people who had waiting for each other to step out of line. But to everyone's surprise, he seemed to be keeping side by side. Planting trees about a month after he moved in, I got a call from our local park committee, including my own. Gerald had volunteered herself into the annual spring cleanup. She brought the same energy and determination she'd once used to make my life miserable to making the preserve. He showed up this morning with work gloves and everything. When she wasn't raking leaves for the past 2 hours, she was actually quite good at organizing and motivating. Sure enough, there was Gerald. As for me, I finally got to enjoy the home I dreamed of for so long. Filling bags with dead leaves, I gained a real connection to my community. And started the battles with the homeowner association had been stressful and infuriating. I suppose you're wondering what I'm up to. They'd also taught me the importance of standing up for what's right. The thought had crossed my mind, bringing people together for a common cause. Leaning on his rake. One crisp fall gives a man a lot of time to think. After the whole ordeal began, I've done some reflecting on my actions, looking out over the newly completed nature preserve. I stayed quiet, waiting for him to continue the trails. I'm not asking for laughing on the playground, but I am trying to. What do they call it? Make amends. This neighborhood was my home for a long time. Turned to see I'd like to contribute to it positively for a change. Mind if I join you? Slowly, she asked. Well, this is certainly a good chair. We worked in silence for a while longer before he spoke again. I have to admit, the changes you've made, they're not bad. Karen spoke up. It's more work, I owe you an apology, but it seems fair. A big one. That was the goal. I turned to look at her. We wanted everyone to have a voice. She nodded, not just one person calling all the shots. I was so caught up in my hint of a smile on his face. Should be. Yes, in my need to control everything. I couldn't see the beauty of what was already here. Things in Oakwood Estate if we all worked into a new normal instead of against each other. Gerald continued to volunteer for community events, feeling a weight I hadn't even realized I was still carrying. People began to lower their guard on my shoulders. He never tried to run for the homeowner association board. I think you've more than made up for it with all your work on the preserve. He became known as the guy who always had tools to lend out. Who would have thought we'd end up kept an eye on his neighbors' houses, maybe even vacation. About a year after Gerald's return, we had another situation. Want some iced tea? I promise it's not poison. A developer tried to buy up several properties on the edge of our neighborhood. Never heard from her before. The old homeowner association. And maybe you can tell me about the rubber stamp it for a bribe. The homeowner association has been considering adding them as an approved modification. We held a series of town halls as the sun set over the developers to present their plans and allowing residents to voice their concerns. So we looked into the potential impact on traffic, what had started as a battle over and the overall character transformed into something much more valuable. We negotiated a compromise. More united the developer agreed to scale back their plans. Isn't that worth more than any house or piece of land? And agreeing to architectural styles 5 years better with our neighborhood nature preserve open. In return, and life we approved a smaller commercial area that would bring the preserve has become the heart of our community within walking distance. A place where people come together to enjoy nature. I was surprised to see Gerald stand up to speak. It's been amazing to watch how this shared space has brought people closer and fostered a real sense of that. I'm impressed with how this situation was handled. Once the subject of so much this would have been decided has become something of a local landmark. Everyone often stop by. It's a better outcome for eco-friendly design. As he sat down, I caught his eye and nodded in acknowledgement. Collection system. It felt like a final closing of an old chapter and the beginning of about sustainable architecture. Today, Oakwood Estates is thriving. True to her word, our little compromise strip from the homeowner has become a popular spot for community gatherings. We've started an annual neighborhood festival that brings everyone together. But now she uses her homeowner association board election for the benefit of more volunteers than open positions. She heads up the preserves volunteer committee from the days when we could barely get anyone to show up to meet using produce from the community garden. I'm still on the board, one sunny Saturday morning. But I'm looking forward to stepping down for my usual jog around the preserve. Sarah and I are thinking about having another kid, and I want to be able to focus more on volunteers, repainting some of the equipment. I never could have predicted how things would turn out when I first caught Gerald stealing my mail. But I've learned that sometimes the worst situations can lead to the best changes. If you're willing to stand up, cleared last month, and give people a chance to do better. She beamed with pride. The other day, I was out front teaching Emily how to ride her bike. There's something I wanted to talk to you about. Gerald walked over to a nearby bench. She's getting big. Karen's expression. They grow up fast, don't they? Mike, I smiled and waved by a developer. That they do. They're interested in buying up some of the land. As I watched him continue down the sidewalk, I felt about how far we'd all come. It wasn't perfect. They want to build more houses, but we built something pretty special here in Oakwood Estates. They're offering a lot of money. Isn't that what community is all about? Are you hungry for more slices of stories? I saw. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell, but it would mean losing a big chunk of the natural area tomorrow. It's working so hard to protect. Exactly, Karen said. I told them I'd think about it, but, well, I wanted to talk to you first. After all, if it weren't for you, none of this would be here. I was quiet for a moment, thinking back to the battles we'd fought 5 years ago. You know, Karen, 5 years ago I probably would have told you to fight this with everything you've got. To not give an inch? She raised an eyebrow. And now? I gestured around us. Now, I think we need to look at the bigger picture. This preserve has done so much good for our community. Maybe there's a way we can work with this developer, find a compromise that allows for some growth, but also protects what's important. Karen nodded slowly. I was thinking the same thing, but I wasn't sure how you'd react. You fought so hard for this land. I fought for what I believed was right, I corrected her. And right now, I believe the right thing is to at least hear them out. But we do it on our terms. Over the next few weeks, Karen and I worked together to form a community advisory board. We brought in environmentalists, longtime residents, and even some of the younger families who'd moved to Oak Ridge recently. Our goal was to create a unified vision for how we wanted our town to grow and change. When we finally met with the developers, we were ready. They came in with slick presentations and big promises, but we had something they didn't expect, a community that knew what it wanted and wasn't afraid to ask for it. We negotiated hard. For every house they wanted to build, we demanded green space be set aside. We insisted on strict environmental standards for construction, native plant landscaping, and a significant expansion of the preserve. We also pushed for affordable housing options to be included in the plan, ensuring that the growth would benefit all members of our community, not just the wealthy. The negotiations were tough, and there were moments when it seemed like we might reach an impasse. But in the end, our unity and clear vision won out. The developers, realizing the value of community support, agreed to most of our terms. The final plan was a far cry from the cookie-cutter subdivision they'd initially proposed. Instead, it was a thoughtfully designed extension of our community that balanced growth with preservation. The new homes would be built using sustainable materials and energy-efficient designs, inspired in part by my own house. A significant portion of the land would be added to the nature preserve, including a critical wildlife corridor we'd been hoping to protect. As we left the final meeting, agreement in hand, Karen turned to me with a smile. "You know, Mike, 5 years ago I never would have believed we'd be standing here like this, working together, finding a middle ground." I chuckled. Life's full of surprises, but I think we've both learned a lot since then. She nodded, her expression turning serious. "I have, and I want you to know, I'm glad you stood your ground back then. If you hadn't, none of this would have happened. You showed me there was a better way to build a community." I felt a wave of emotion at her words. "Thanks, Karen. That means a lot. But you know, it wasn't just me. It took all of us working together to make this happen." As we walked back towards the preserve, I couldn't help but reflect on how far we'd come. The battles of 5 years ago had been hard, but they'd laid the foundation for something truly special. We'd created a community that valued both progress and preservation, that wasn't afraid to stand up for what it believed in but also knew the importance of compromise and collaboration. The next few years brought big changes to Oak Ridge. The new development slowly took shape, and true to the agreement, it blended seamlessly with the existing community. The expanded nature preserve became an even bigger draw, attracting nature lovers from all over the region. My role in the community evolved too. People started coming to me for advice on eco-friendly building practices and community organizing. I found myself mentoring young activists and speaking at town meetings about the importance of sustainable development. One crisp fall evening, almost exactly 10 years after I'd first broken ground on my house, I stood on my porch looking out over the preserve. The setting sun painted the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, and I could hear the distant laughter of children playing on the expanded playground. Karen joined me, handing me a mug of hot cider. "Quite a view, isn't it?" she said, her voice soft with appreciation. I nodded, taking a sip of the cider. "It sure is. You know, there were times back then when I thought about giving up, selling the land and moving somewhere else." Karen looked at me, surprised. "Really? I never would have guessed. You always seemed so determined." I shrugged. I was, but it was hard, facing all that opposition. What kept me going was knowing that I was fighting for something bigger than just my house. I was fighting for the right to shape our community in a positive way. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "I'm glad you didn't give up, and I'm sorry again for being a part of that opposition." I turned to her with a smile. "Water under the bridge, Karen. Look at what we've accomplished since then. This preserve, the new development, the way our whole community has come together. It's more than I ever could have imagined." As if to punctuate my words, a family walked by on the trail below, waving up at us. We waved back, and I felt a warm sense of belonging wash over me. "You know," Karen said thoughtfully, "I think the real victory here wasn't just preserving the land or building your house. It was showing that people can change, that communities can come together to create something beautiful." I nodded, raising my mug in a toast. To change, compromise, and the power of standing up for what's right. Karen clinked her mug against mine. "And to unexpected friendships." As we stood there, watching the sun set over the land that had once been the source of so much conflict, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The battles had been hard, but they'd been worth it. We'd created something lasting, something that would benefit generations to come. And in the end, isn't that what community is all about? Standing up for what you believe in, being open to change, and working together to create something greater than any one person could achieve alone. As I looked out over Oak Ridge, I knew that whatever challenges the future might bring, our community was ready to face them together. Are you hungry for more slices of stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to never miss out on any videos. See you tomorrow at Story Slices.